All right. Let me just make sure everybody can hear me. This is on. Hey guys, how you doing? So just let me know whether you can hear me or not. You should be able to hear me okay. But welcome to this evening's live session. Just thought it would be another opportunity for us to kind of kick it, answer some questions, and just have a general chit chat. As always, feel free to ask any questions that you have, be that on videos, be that on mortgages, investment, that kind of stuff. Completely up to you. So we're just going to wait for a few more people to join on here. Hey, how you doing, Sean? Suan, sorry, how you doing? Welcome. So we're just going to let some people join, and then happy to kick on and answer some questions if you have any. How's everyone actually been? I've been watching the football tonight, and I'm a United supporter, so it's been an absolute mess. I'm sure if there's any of you watching who are either Spurs supporters, today is a really good day in terms of match results. Not so much for me, but there you go. So let me just get this ready on my side here. Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. So there is quite a bit to talk about this week, just in terms of videos and stuff. And I know that we're in a period of a lot of uncertainty. Furlough coming to an end at the end of October, so it means that many people may be in a position where they are struggling, or maybe fearing that they're going to be in a position where they are going to struggle going forward. So I thought, with the videos this week, particularly because I've been asked questions about cash effects and forex trading and all that kind of stuff, to kind of directly go back at cash effects and kind of give my thoughts on it. So if you haven't watched those videos, please do check them out. I hope they're useful, and as always, if you guys have any questions, then feel free to leave them in the comments of the YouTube videos. I always get back to you guys with my thoughts and stuff. But we are in a position where there's a lot of uncertainty, and there will be a lot of uncertainty coming in the next few weeks, certainly as furlough comes to an end and the new job scheme comes into place. But I think Rishi Sunak was quite open in him saying that he's not going to be able to use to basically be able to save all of the jobs, and that means that people are going to be made redundant, unfortunately. And now is the time to really focus on the basic things that really matter. That's having good cash control. That's making sure that you've got emergency funds, all those kind of things. I've talked about index funds and ETFs and all these kind of things that you can use. I know that people still use trading 212 and free trade as potential options. Nothing wrong with using those as well, but I think it is important to understand exactly what you're doing, so on and so forth. So as always, I'm happy to take questions on anything that you guys have got in your minds and go from there. But I just thought it would be really important to reiterate the importance of making sure that we've got the basics in place. I do also want to talk a little bit about something that is a bit further afield than just the immediate, thinking more longer term, which I'll come to a bit later on. But I think there are questions coming in right now, and we'll get to those in a moment. So right, let's have a look and see what we've got here. Gem. Okay. Gem. Right. Hi, what's the quickest way to make some serious passive income in investment ISAs? How much do I need to save each month? I'm 41. There is no easy way to make passive income unless you have a large amount of capital to invest in the first place. And I think this is really important. I was having a conversation with somebody who messaged me yesterday, on IG, and we were talking about passive income. So passive income, you will generally generate passive income from getting dividends, right, from your investments. And 1 second, guys. I know that you guys can hear me, but I think my audio is not actually going through my mic. So let me just double check this really quickly. 1 second. It's going through there. So where? Built in. Let's look at this. 1 second. That's coming up fast. Okay, cool. So as I was saying, there is no quick way for you to get passive income. You have to have a good amount of capital to invest in the first place to get passive income. So passive income will typically come from dividends income. So you'll be investing in a company, and if, say, I don't know, Coca-Cola is paying dividends every August, you will get a dividends payment every August, or if they're paying on a quarterly basis. The only way you're going to get some serious passive income, as you put it, Jem, would be if you have a large amount of money to invest right now that can give you a dividend straight off the bat, immediately. If you're only looking to invest on a monthly basis, you're not going to get any meaningful passive income. And that might come as a bit of a shock and a bit of a surprise. But unfortunately, social media is full of nonsense, full of bullshit, if I can use that phrase. And passive income is not something that I personally invest for with a goal towards anyway, not right now. Especially if you are still in a position where you can work a job and you've got money coming in, really you should be looking to invest for growth so that you're taking care of later years. Passive income is extremely hard to come by, even now. I mean, because if you look at the economy and you look at the FTSE 100, for example, 50 of the companies in the FTSE 100, I believe, have just announced they're going to be scrapping dividends for the rest of the year. And what that basically means is that there is no passive income. There will be no dividends or passive income coming off the back of that. The same thing can be said for Europe. I think it's 20% or 30% of companies listed in Europe have also declared that there's going to be less dividends for the foreseeable future as we try to come to terms with COVID-19 and the impacts of it. So there is no quick win to make some serious passive income if you do not have capital to invest already. And look at it this way. Let's just say you have a stock that is paying, many people quote AT&T as paying 7% dividends, right? So even if you had £100,000, a 7% dividends is still only, a very, very small amount. So it depends what you want in terms of passive income, but really you need a large investment amount to get a decent passive income. I hope that helps. Leave your comments if it doesn't. Let me know there. Then we've got here as well. So Anik definitely hasn't been United tonight this evening. It's actually shocking, but let's not talk about that. Petra, yes. So furlough comes to an end at the end of October. Rishi Sunak has announced a number of new measures, but he was quite vocal in saying that even though these measures are going to be introduced, he's not going to be able to save every job out there. So there is a fear. I think the original numbers that they were forecasting for jobs being lost or unemployment was going to be between 2.5 and 3 million. I think with the introduction of the new measures that Rishi has announced, that number won't be as many, but there will still be some cuts. So for many people, they'll still be a little bit worried and stuff. Danny, is there a particular stock or share that interests you the most right now? By the way, appreciate your work, buddy. You speak very well and clear at a good speed. Thanks, mate. I really do appreciate that, Danny. I haven't really got any new stocks that are on my radar. For me, I'm still looking at Tesla. Tesla have got their Q3 results. Actually, the initial indications of the Q3 results are actually quite positive. Now, with that being said, I haven't seen a share price reaction to the initial news. I think they'll be really hanging off until the actual Q3 results come out, which I think is in a couple of weeks' time. But the initial indications are that actually Q3 has not been that bad for Tesla. When you consider everything that's happened, how the stock price is going to react to that, though, I don't really know. But there are a number of shares that people have been asking me about over the last couple of days. Snowflake was one of them. That was an IPO that happened, I think, about 2 weeks ago. Many people are piling into that. I haven't actually been tracking it, though, but it has been one that people have had on their radars, and there's been a few new IPOs that have been on the books on Trading 212 over the last kind of like week or two since we last spoke here, but there aren't any at the moment that I'm keeping my eye on. I'm more investing specifically into index funds, purely because, you know, if you put £100 into an index fund, you're getting more for your money than you would be buying £100 worth of, you know, Apple shares, for example. You know, at least with an index fund, you're getting 20 companies for your £100. So there aren't any stocks specifically that I'm watching at the moment. But I do think that, you know, if you're looking to invest right now, getting market saturation is always a good place to start, to try and make sure that you're looking at, you know, some index funds that are low cost, or even ETFs as well, that will allow you some diversification and saturation at a pretty low cost. Suwan, what about IM Markets Live, other FX platforms? What's your thoughts on that one? I don't really follow foreign exchange, if I'm completely honest, Suwan. I get so many questions about them. In fact, most of my DMs are all about forex platforms. I think if you're going to go into forex, it's really, really important that you understand exactly what you're doing and what you're going into, because I think oftentimes people don't. There we go. People don't actually understand what it is that they're going into and exactly what they're actually doing. And that's the trouble. If people are going to buy signals to start trading Forex, then sorry, but you're in for a pretty bad experience, because you're not actually gaining any knowledge whilst you're doing it. Now, there are some platforms that will give you the education and so on and so forth, but I think if you are going to go into Forex, you need to understand what's going on, and really you need to be investing in actually understanding how things work so that you can actually trade yourself and actually start to develop some kind of pattern, some kind of system that works for you. On the podcast tomorrow, I actually have a Forex practitioner on the show. So if you've not checked out the podcast, it's on Apple, Spotify, Google, it's on Stitcher. I think it's on Amazon now, because I submitted it to Amazon like 2-3 weeks ago. But it's called the Conversation of Money Podcast, same name as the channel here. And Jack is a Forex educator. So basically what he does, he teaches people how to trade Forex, and his goal is to get you up and running within 365 days. And 365 days for many people might sound like a very, very long time. But if you listen to the podcast tomorrow morning, it will be live at 6 a.m., you'll understand why he says 365 days, because, you know, you want to understand what it means to trade, how to trade, how you develop a system, how you develop your discipline, how you actually put practices in place so that you can learn and make sure that you actually come out on the upside. The reason why I don't trade Forex is because I simply don't have the time, and I don't have the temperament to be looking at that, and I know that about myself. So it's not something that I look at specifically. But with Forex, look, it's very, very risky. A lot of people do lose money. 90% of retail investors do lose money. That doesn't mean that you can't make money, because you can. There are people who are very, very successful at it. But I think oftentimes what tends to happen is we're too focused on trying to get a quick return, or trying to get something back really, really quickly, in opposed to us taking time to understand that sometimes you have to put the time in. It does take a little bit of an exercise, of a system, of a process to get to the point where you're making really good returns. And yeah, the podcast tomorrow morning is going to be really, 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 really eye-opening. If you follow me on IG, then you've probably heard some of the snippets over the last couple of days from the episode in the morning. But yeah, Forex really isn't my thing. I don't have the temperament for it. It's not my domain, which is why I've got Jack on the channel, on the podcast, sorry, tomorrow morning. So I hope that helps. Juicy, love your videos. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much. Really, really great. 1 second, guys. You're saying that you can't hear. Just come on it. Bear me 1 second. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me now, because I've just turned on the mic. The mic was on a different one, and I can see that the audio is coming through here. So you should now be able to hear me properly. Let's have a look. Yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. Right, so let's have a look at these ones. I'm a little bit behind on the comments, guys, so apologies. I'm just trying to catch up now. Sorry, that's live. Right, I'm 19, started an investment ISA. Is this good, or what would you recommend for someone my age? You're on the right path, mate. ISAs are the first place for you to begin, particularly if you're just starting out. It will keep money away from the tax man, and any returns that you get within your ISA will be tax-free as well. And you've got £20,000 every single year you can use. Just getting into the habit of doing this at 19 is really, really good. And I listen, I wish I was doing that when I was your age, and I wasn't. I was too busy doing other stuff that didn't really make any difference or doesn't really matter. But no, you're on the right track there. Just make sure that you form the habit of paying in every single month. And it doesn't matter if it's just a tenner or 20 quid. Just put in what you can afford into that account. And over the long term, it's really, really going to pay you dividends, because you'll have a nice bit of money stashed away that would have hopefully performed really, really well with the market too. So I really like that, Troll. Thank you so much, and well done. Just carry on with that. That's great. Petra, do you have any experience with crowd to let or other property shares, crowd investment platforms? Are you talking about crowdfunding there? Let me know. I think that's what you mean. Yeah, let me know in the comments below, Petra, if that's what you mean. Then I'll come back to this question once I've got clarification on that. Gina, hi. What are your thoughts on Trading 212? Trading 212 is good, Gina. Welcome. I use Trading 212. I have a little bit of my money in Trading 212. In fact, I started to use Trading 212 because I was making videos on here about Trading 212. I don't hold all of my money there. Most of my money is with Hargreaves Lansdown. I've got some with LNG as well, which is Legal and General. I generally invest via funds. Trading 212 is really, really good. I've got some review videos on Trading 212, so if you've not watched those, go and watch them. But in order for you to just start investing and gain access to companies that you know and probably use, like Apple, for example, Trading 212 is great for that. You can invest, as little as you want, get fractional shares in these businesses and start your investment journey. So they are great for that purpose. I will just say though that if you are a beginner, then you really, really need to know what you're doing. Simply just buying Apple just because it's Apple, it will only get you so far. It's a good place to start, but if you start getting to the point where you're paying good amounts of money into Trading 212 and you're building a portfolio, then you really need to start considering, your risk management. You need to really start to consider what companies you're buying, why you're buying them, and how those companies actually operate to actually make sure that they are good companies to buy. And you need to start thinking about your goal. I mean, a lot of people start investing because we just want to start investing. I always say you need to take a step back and ask, why are you investing? What's the goal? What's the plan? But to get started, Trading 212 is pretty good. I do like them. I do use them. They're pretty useful, and they at least help people get started very, very quickly. Petra, I've been using Trading 212 for about 3 months. I really like it. Yeah, Trading 212 is great. Gem, I don't think I explained myself well. Having one-on-one with next week. I'll explain better then. Okay, cool. That's fine. Kenny, I recently got hooked on Dave Ramsey videos. He calls credit cards the cigarettes of the 21st century. Is there any other way to build a good credit score, though? Yeah, there are a number of ways, mate. So I did a video and I gave 10 tips on how to improve your credit score. So credit cards are great. I mean, the reality is that in order for you to have a decent credit score, you have to have a track record of being able to pay back debt. And one of the ways that you can do that is with a credit card, but it's not the only way. So another thing you can do, there's little things that you can do actually, just making sure you're on the electoral roll where you live. making sure that you're paying your gas and your electric on time, because all those things now feed into your credit score. Those things are very, 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 very important. And just making sure that you keep up to date with your credit score on a consistent basis. So one thing that I do, there are a number of apps that you can download. So you can have ClearScore. ClearScore is one of them. You've got Credit Karma, I believe it is. Let me just double check, because I've got all three of them on here. So there's ClearScore, there is Credit Karma, and there is another one. There's three altogether that you can use to track your Credit Karma, ClearScore, and there's one other one as well. It is in the notes of the video that I've just referenced to. So if you go back to, it will be early in January. It will be in the first 6 videos that I posted on this channel. It's 10 ways to improve your credit score. There is in the description there should be a link that will take you to an article on my website that will give you all of the steps. But credit cards are a crucial part to it, unfortunately. With a credit card though, you just have to be disciplined. I used to do this and I don't do it anymore, thankfully, because I've learned. But the mistake that a lot of people get into is they will go and get a credit card, and then they'll go and use it, and then what they'll basically do is just pay the minimum payment every single month. That's the worst thing you can do from a credit card lender's point of view. You don't want to do that, and you have to know how to use it. So one of the best things for you to do with a credit card is you go and get a credit card. Let's just say you have £1,000 limit on there. You spend £400 on it in September or October, for example, but then you pay off that full balance. Paying off the full balance will always give you a really, really good score, because it basically just shows that you have good money management. So it's not just you're spending money then paying it back over a period of time at the minimum payment rates. It's I spent 400 quid, but I'm just paying 400 quid. That demonstrates really, really good money management. So if you do that over a 3 to 6 month period, you should see that your credit score rockets as a result of that. The same thing could work if you're just using 50 quid a month and just paying it off. That will give you a boost to your credit score as well. So it's little things that are in there, but the link in that video will take you to an article that explains a lot of that in further detail. Right, okay, so where was I? I've just skipped something here. Let me just go back up. Where are we? Aha, okay. Diamond Pocket. So I used 212, nothing crazy in relation to investing, but would you say it's time to sell? Right, this is a tricky one. I can't just give you yes or no on this, because number one, I can't give you any advice because I don't know your circumstances personally. Number two, I don't know what stock you're holding. So let's talk about this, because this is really, really important, right? I've had a number of people over the last couple of days on IG specifically ask me this question, and I've had to tell them exactly the same thing. I can't give you advice. I don't know what you hold. I don't know why you're investing. But let's talk about all of those things. So let's just say you bought Tesla. Why did you buy Tesla in the first place? Did you buy it because, there was a stock split, it was all over social media, you thought it might be a way to make quick money? What was your reason for buying the stock? You have to have a reason for investing in the first place, right? Just following trends on social media or following videos or people that tell you, these are the top 6 stocks to buy in August. I mean, those are the videos that I hate the most here on YouTube, because they're just dangerous. They don't know your personal circumstances, and a lot of the time when those kind of videos come to light, the propensity of getting things wrong is so high that, for me, the risk is just too much. So you have to have a reason why you're buying a stock. So if I look at Tesla, I bought Tesla because I own a Tesla. I like the car, I love the product, I like Elon. I've had the car for five years now. I know the buzz and the customer loyalty that the brand elicits through the owners, and how aspirational a Tesla is to new people who want to move into something that is a little bit new, that is forward thinking, so on and so forth. So all of those things, alongside further research that I did about the business, made me think, okay, I'm going to go buy Tesla. So for me, I bought Tesla, and I'm going to hold it for as long as I possibly can, because I do believe that as the motor industry starts to move more towards electric vehicles, and that is happening now, albeit a little bit slowly still, it will start moving in that direction at pace in the next 2-3 years. I believe that Tesla, because they are leaders in this market, have a huge advantage strategically, and this is from a practical point of view in terms of miles, charging facilities, technology, you name it. They have a huge advantage. So I bought the stock because I think in 4-5 years time it is going to be worth more than what I bought it for. And in 4 or 5 years time, if Elon, for example, were to leave the business for some reason that is completely unbeknownst to me, I might sell. But ultimately, I want to hold that stock until I pretty much reach my retirement ages where I'm going to need the money, which is 25 years off still at this point. So the question is, why did you buy the stock in the first place? If you bought it because you thought you might make a little bit of money, and you've made a little bit of money, maybe it is time to sell. If you bought it because you just actually believe in a company, you want to hold on to it, then it may not be a good time to sell. You should never base all of your decision on whether you should buy or sell a stock purely on the price of the stock. The price of the stock at the time doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's literally just the value of a business at that given time. Always investing with long term. So if you're buying a stock, you should be buying it because, in 2-3 years time, I believe it's going to be worth more money. That should be the primary reason why you buy something. Or even if you're doing it a short term, in 6 months time, I think it's going to be worth more money. So I can't tell you whether it should be, whether it's time for you to sell. I don't know what you hold. I don't know whether you're in profit right now. I don't know whether you're in loss. If you're in loss, definitely don't sell. I can tell you that right now. Because if you do go and sell, you are crystallizing a loss. And a loss is not a loss until literally you cash it in. So it's hard to say, but I don't know what you hold. So that may not be really a helpful, Diamond, but it's the best answer that I can give you without really knowing your full details and what you've actually bought, why you bought it, how long you've held it for, your goals behind investing, all that kind of good stuff. Right, so Gina's asked, how do I start an index fund? I'm a complete beginner. So if you go onto people like Vanguard, Hargreaves Lansdown, they will have index funds. Fidelity, a host of other providers, they will have index funds. So an index fund is essentially you'll send them 100 quid every single month, and they will basically invest in a number of the top companies in the world for you. So that will include Tesla, Apple, Walt Disney, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, Facebook, a load of companies, probably at least 20, maybe 30. You might even get some that will invest in hundreds of companies. So you're getting a little bit of each of those companies by investing in index fund. But Fidelity, Vanguard, Hargreaves Lansdown will all have index funds that you can invest in pretty easily, and they are very, very low cost and efficient as well. Okay, so right, what's the best way to pick stocks with high dividends plus potential to growth? It's all going to Imran, right? High dividends. Here we go with dividends again. I'm going to be careful with the way I answer this question because I get the attraction between of people wanting to buy dividend stocks. I do get it. I absolutely do. But I'm going to say what I told someone yesterday on IG. And this person who messaged me on IG was saying, they want to invest in dividend stocks. They want to amass 300,000 in 35 years because that's what their retirement fund is essentially going to be, plus some other stuff that they have. And my response to him was, right, dividends is hard to come by right now because of COVID. And I've explained all the reasons why at the top of this, right? If you invest for growth, because typically if you're investing for dividend stocks, right, or you're investing purely for dividends, you are only looking at companies that are going to be paying dividends or that are paying dividends currently. And what that basically means is that you might have a perfectly good company in there that is doing really, really well. Share price is absolutely booming, but because they don't pay dividends, you're basically saying you're not going to invest in them. So essentially, you're whittling down, say, a basket of 100 companies that you could invest in, potentially, that are good companies, down to 20, because those 20 are paying dividends. you're narrowing your basket and your realm of investment simply by saying dividends, right? Dividend is hard to come by right now in this climate. There are still companies that are paying it, but it's hard to come by. And there is so much on social media about dividend payments, dividend investing, dividend this, dividend. Like, it has got a place, but the point is it the right thing for you? Again, it comes back down to your goal. What are you investing for? If you're in your 20s, Imran, or even if you're in your 30s, if you're able-bodied, able to work, earning good money, dividends should be the last thing in your mind right now. Investing for growth should be what's on your mind right now. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're investing for growth, remember I gave you the analogy of that 100 companies and you're whittling down to 20 companies. Well, if you're investing for growth, you're investing in all of those 100 companies, which means you're ultimately going to capture those companies that are paying dividends anyway. There are 20 plus another 80 that could then pay dividends, but are growing because their share price and the companies are performing well, the share price is increasing. You're narrowing your pool just by saying dividend, 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 high dividends. If you're young, you're able-bodied, most people that will invest for dividends specifically in the investment world, we're building a portfolio, will be people who are heading towards retirement or retiring right now. If you're looking to retire early, absolutely go for high dividend ones. But if you're still able-bodied, you're doing yourself a disservice, I believe anyway, by simply just focusing on dividend investing specifically. Invest for growth. If you get a few companies in there that are paying dividends, fantastic. That's an added bonus. If you're doing your research properly, it's all about having a strong balance sheet. A company with a strong balance sheet should be paying dividends. But that isn't always the case. And it depends on what's going on within the business. Dividends are always paid from profits. So you're also going to be looking at profitable businesses. Businesses that are not highly leveraged, so they don't have a lot of debt. They have a lot of money coming in, few liabilities, few debt. A lot in the balance sheet in terms of money, cash, reserves that they have available. Those are some of the things that you want to be looking at if you're looking at dividend companies, but please just don't pigeonhole yourself into high dividend stocks. This stuff on YouTube really does have to stop. I see so much of it. People giving portfolio updates because they're giving dividends and the dividends this and dividends that. Well, the dividends they're getting is what? 10 quid a quarter. It's not going to make any difference, really. It's not going to make a major difference to you. So investing for growth, I believe, is the best way to go. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine who's a financial advisor. We were just talking about how dividend investing has become the big thing. Dividend investing has a place. It has a role to play. The question is, in your goal, is it the right thing to do? Is it the right tool to pull out of your tool bag to help you get to your goal? Now, is your thoughts on the rights to buy shares IAG? I covered this a couple of weeks ago. I had a friend who worked for British Airways who was offered shares at a ridiculous discount. It's just ridiculous. I said to her to buy more. I don't know whether she has or not. I think with IAG, they're recovery stock, aren't they? They've been hit hard by COVID. I think ultimately they have a really good chance of the stock returning to value. It's a question of how long that's going to take. So I think they're a really, really good buy, personally. That isn't to say you should just go buy them. Obviously do your own research. But I think that they are definitely a good buy. But I think you're going to have to be patient with how long it might take for them to return to an amount that you feel is rewarding of the risk that you're going to take by buying them. Because let's face it, they could still go bust. I don't think they will. I doubt that that will be allowed to happen. But you never know. Stranger things certainly have happened in the past. But yeah, really, really good buy. But I think you'll have to be patient with it as well. Okay, so Petra, crowdfunding. Okay, so let me just see what your question was originally. I think you were asking my thoughts on crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is a funny one. You have to know what you're doing when you're looking at crowdfunding stuff, right? Crowdfunding is actually very, very risky because essentially you're effectively investing in some of the times new businesses. Some of them will sometimes be established businesses, but it is still high risk. A prime example of a recent crowdfund that I looked at because I was a little bit interested in it myself was Moneybox. So they crowdfunded recently, and the reason why I didn't invest in the Moneybox crowdfund is because when you read through the fine detail of what you get as a person who's invested in them as a result of the crowdfunding, number one, you don't get preferential shares, which means that you don't really have any rights. And in the case of Moneybox specifically, there was a clause in there to say that first, you cannot request your shares out because you've invested via crowdfund. So essentially, it's not liquid shares. So at the moment, I've got shares in Tesla. I could go onto my Hargreaves Lansdowne account and sell those shares immediately. With Moneybox, I would have shares in Moneybox in exchange for the money I was going to give them. However, I couldn't literally sell my shares. The only way for me to have got my shares back would be to, number one, wait for them to either sell the business or float on the stock market. Those were the two circumstances. Now, specifically when they looked at floating on the stock market, they had a stipulation in there that it would either have to float or sell at a particular amount. And if they didn't hit that amount, then I wouldn't get anything back either. So these kind of things, you have to know the fine detail. You have to read the prospectus and you have to ask questions with it as well. It is quite high risk. I think that, if you have got money that you're looking to invest in, you're a first timer, you're better off going into the stock market and just investing that way. The reason why crowdfunding offers you better or more attractive rates of return is because it is high risk. If you're a first time investor, you're better off going to buy something like an index fund in the FTSE 100 or something like that, right? These are established businesses that have been around for years and years and years, not new or incumbent businesses that are either brand new or have only been around for a very short period of time. Those are my thoughts on crowdfunding. You just really need to know what you're doing. There was a new rule that was brought in last year that said that actually, if you're not an experienced investor, then you shouldn't really be investing in crowdfunding anyway, or if you were, you shouldn't invest. I think the limit was something like, I want to say 30%, but I can't quite remember. More than 30% of your holdings. There is a limit on that now. So most of the crowdfunding guys should go through like a due diligence step with you to ensure that you, they don't take on board money from investors that exceed that limit, that recommended limit by the FCA. So those are my thoughts on crowdfunding. I hope that's helpful, Petra. Mike T, have an agreement with a credit card to repay my debt, approximately 7k over 3 years, interest free. I also want to save for a house deposit. Mike, just a question for you on here, mate. Okay, you've got a continuation on here. 1 second. Do you prioritize saving money on an ISA, 50% shares, and gain interest on my savings, or prioritize paying off debt? Right, that's a really good question, Mike. It really depends. So, you can do both, or you could choose to pay off debt or save at the same time. It really depends on what your priorities are. There are a couple of train of thoughts. If you focus on paying off debt first, it means that you don't have the burden of that payment on your mind and on your finances on a monthly basis. You're also going to get rid of the interest if you focus on paying off the debt early. So there are merits in that regard. But if you're the kind of person who thinks, well, actually, you wouldn't mind doing both at the same time, then there's nothing wrong with doing that as well. I think it's really all about just making sure that you're disciplined and you have a plan and you stick to it. Oftentimes it can be very, very, very easy to derail yourself off your plans if you're not really kind of like stringent and strict with yourself. So there's nothing wrong with doing both, but you just really, really need to make sure that you have a plan in place, you're robust, you're disciplined, and you keep to it. And if you can, some quick, like high level, really important like tips for you is, first and foremost, that credit card, do not carry it around in your wallet, mate. Literally put it in a drawer somewhere at home, just leave it. Because what tends to happen, and this has happened to me in the past, paying off a credit card, that's fine, you feel good about yourself, but then something happens and then I'm going to use the credit card, and then you undo all the work of paying off that debt in the first place. So try not to carry that card around with you. Sling it somewhere that you're not going to have access to it or see it on a daily basis and just forget that it's there and just continue to pay it down. The other thing I just wanted to ask for you, mate, because it leads on to the other statement that you just mentioned on here. You say you have an agreement with the credit card to pay off the debt approximately 7K over 3 years, interest free. What kind of agreement do you have? If you have an IVA or you've come to some kind of payment agreement, you definitely want to go and check your credit report, because if you have that on your credit report, it may stop you from getting a mortgage for a house when you're ready to get a house once you've saved for your house deposit. So that's just something extra for you to think about. But yeah, if you can let me know what kind of agreement you have, then I can give you maybe my thoughts a little bit more, but just please bear that in mind. Luke, hi bud, I'm 23 and currently trying to save for a flat in London ASAP. I'm saving 2/3 of my monthly salary in savings account. Wow, dude, that's crazy. What would you suggest to try speed this up? Investing, side hustles. Right, okay, so when you say ASAP, Luke, how soon is ASAP? Is ASAP 2 years or is ASAP 5 years? I need to know. I would generally say that if you're going to invest, you need to be looking long term. So if this is 1 or 2 years into the future, you're looking to buy your flat, do not invest it. The risk is way too high. Something could go wrong. You could lose money in a deposit. If you join me on any or one of my really much earlier lives, I give the example of my mate who I used to work with in Canary Wharf. He invested his deposit money into the stock market, and as COVID happened, he lost about 5 grand of his deposit on his house. Now, luckily for James, he's got money lying around elsewhere, so it really wasn't that bad for him. But for other people, that 5 grand that he lost, that could be the difference of you getting your house and not getting your house. So if it is between 1 and 2 years, don't invest it. If you're potentially looking at maybe 3 years plus, then investing does become an option. That isn't saying go and invest it. It becomes an option, but you really need to consider your risk, how you're going to invest it with the lowest amount of risk possible, to ensure that if you do invest it over that period of time, 3 years plus, you don't run the risk of having the market tail off or the fund tail off because it's invested riskily and then you losing money, i.e. the 5 grand that James lost. So that's something to consider. I would say if you really want to play it safe, mate, try and get a side hustle that could generate more money for you to just throw into this account, into your deposit. But obviously I would imagine that you're going into something like a LISA, right? A lifetime ISA for your deposit, so you get that extra money from the government as well. But those are my thoughts. Let me know if that's helpful, mate. Francois, I'm getting started, total investing beginner, thinking about creating a stocks and shares ISA with Vanguard. Any thoughts about using them? Vanguard are very good. You can get some really low cost options with them as well. And they have lots of range in terms of the kind of funds that you could go into as well. So Vanguard are very good. I don't have a bad word to say about them. They're one of the more mature providers on the market. So yeah, they've been around for a while and they know exactly what they're doing. Okay, I'm going to try and catch up on this. There's quite a few questions on here. So Gina, thank you. Currently practicing on demo fractional shares. Will watch your videos. Yes. So Gina, just a question for you. On Trading 212, are you on the demo CFD account? Because the demo CFD account is different to what I've just talked about in terms of like buying shares. So I guess the question for you is, are you looking to trade these shares or are you looking to invest them? Because trading and investing are two different things. So just let me know in the comments, right? And I'll come back to this a little bit later on. If you are on a demo account and you're looking at trading, then the parts of the podcast tomorrow are going to help you. But it's a completely different skill set. You need to be way on the ball if you're going to be looking at trading these things. Really on the ball, and your research has to be top notch, so you understand what you're buying and you can identify when you're going to enter and when you're going to exit. Yeah, so just let me know. Kiru, hey Pete, hope you're doing well. I have been steadily investing every month in FN stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Google, other well-known tech stocks with a ton horizon of 5 years. What's your thoughts? That's really good, mate. You've picked tech stock there, so yeah, tech stock is good. Facebook, Amazon, Google, all those guys are going great guns at this point in time. So right now, you're probably sitting very, very pretty on some really good returns. One thing I would say is as you start to pay more money in and you start to build your portfolio, you definitely want to think about diversifying your investment. So you don't want to put all of your money just into the tech stock, because what happens if the tech stock this tech sector, for example, was to plummet? It only means that you have run the risk of losing money. So you want to think about diversification. I do have a video where I spoke about this. I think it's called Your Diversification Mistake, or something like that. It's got, the thumbnail has got red writing on it, or red blocks with the writing on there. Definitely go check that out, because it's very, very worthwhile you considering. But 5-year time horizon, spot on. You're going into good popular companies. They're doing well right now. Spot on. Really, really good, mate. Ovidius, hey Pete, hope you're well. Any thoughts on impact investing, apps like Ticker, and general ESG SRI funds? Is ethical investing real or a market tool? Mate, this is a great question. I did a talk on this a couple of weeks ago. So for everybody who may not know what ESG and SRI is, ESG is basically it's a language we use for ethical investing. So it stands for environmental, social, and governance. And what it basically means that we typically invest in companies. So people like Tesla or Facebook or Google, right? As an investment provider, what they would tend to do is they would go and have a look at how these companies operate. So they're looking at three things. They're looking at whether the company has an environmental policy, a social policy, and a governance policy. So are they doing things to benefit the environment long term? Yes or no? Do they have a social policy in terms of their impact to their local environment, local social status, that kind of stuff, like social in general? Then governance is all about whether they actually treat their members well, whether they pay them a fair wage, whether they have diversity in the workplace, so on and so forth, right? So this kind of investing is becoming more and more popular, particularly when we start looking at environmental issues. So ESG, SRI, impact investing are great things. They are not just like a fad. They are becoming really, really popular now. And as we head into the future, I would hazard to say in 2 to 3 years' time, every single investment provider on the market will have an ESG proposition where you can invest from an ethical standpoint. There used to be so much stigma about investing ethically. Oh, it's expensive, the returns are rubbish. None of that is true anymore. You can get some really, really good returns, some really, really, really good funds. And it's all about making sure that your money is being invested in a way to benefit the environment. And not just that, to almost force companies who aren't thinking about this stuff to start thinking about it. Because guess what? If an investment house with £100 million goes to a company and says, we want to buy shares in your business, but we notice that you haven't got an environmental policy, we're not going to give you 100 million quid until you have one. Guess what? The company is going to go and have one. So ESG is really, really important. It's not a marketing tool. It is a real thing. It is a very, very big topic in the investment world right now. I know that I host a podcast. I host and produce a podcast for a financial advisory firm in the Midlands, and they are talking about that specifically with one of the big investment houses. We have a 3-week episode, or 3-series episode just on that. So it is a proper thing. It's not just a marketing tool. Danny, obviously no one has a crystal ball, but what's your best guess on how the next 1 to 3 years play out with the UK economy, Brexit, US elections, Miley Cyrus virus? It seems very volatile. Right, so one thing that we definitely know for sure, Danny, that's a really good question. Thanks, mate. The markets are going to be volatile. I mean, to be fair, Brexit, in the midst of all of this COVID stuff, has gone out the window. We've completely forgot that Brexit is actually happening. I mean, like literally, it's happening as we speak. December, we're fully out of it. And, the UK economy is going to be volatile. It is going to be volatile. The global economy is going to be volatile. I mean, everything that's going on in America right now. I was talking to an American actually who wants me on his podcast just before I started this live, and we were talking about the state of the elections in the US, and even out there it's volatile. And yeah, Trump has now got COVID. He's already sowing seeds of, I'm not going to be giving this up peacefully. And the consequence of that on global markets, it is going to be volatile. However, I've said this before and I'm going to say this again. Volatility in the markets isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you are investing money on a monthly basis, you should be extremely happy. You should be like, listen, let it be volatile. Because if you're investing money into an index fund every single month and the market is falling, guess what? You are shopping at a discount. And you know what? Once the market starts to recover in 3 to 5 years' time, you are absolutely going to be laughing. Now notice I said in an index fund, not buying individual stocks. Individual stocks are so hard, really hard to be able to prep for this kind of stuff. But if you invest in an index fund that's getting you 20, 30, 40 stocks in one go for your 100 quid, laughing. Absolutely laughing. Market saturation. Really important. So volatility isn't a bad thing, mate. Volatility is good. That's where the opportunities come for you to really realize some growth in your portfolio. Ideally, you don't want to be buying things that are just constantly increasing in price. You do want it to fall. You want it to fall, then go back up, and you want it to fall a bit more, then go back up. That's the whole point. If you're investing on a monthly basis, that pound cost averaging effect and the compounding of that is huge. That's where you're going to make some money. That's how the wealthy make money. There's a follow-up question here. What's your favorite index fund right now? I know you can't recommend, but would be interested to know. I've got a few at the minute within Vanguard. Go and have a look at Vanguard and Hargreaves Lansdown. They've got some really good ones. Again, I don't want to say I've got this, I've got that, because then what happens is people then go buy it, and if they don't then have the same experience as I do, because it's aligned to my goals and my plan, then I'm the one at fault. But go and have a look at some of the stuff on Hargreaves Lansdown, Vanguard and Fidelity. You'll be able to pick up some really good stuff. A guy who I was speaking to the other day was, well, it's not an index fund, it was an ETF. They are looking at the VSU, it's the VUSA index fund. I'm going to type it in here, which is with, that's a Vanguard fund actually, and that one is the one that tracks the US markets. I'll just put it in here. Go check that out as well. And there was a UK version as well, which was the VUSX. But those are both ETFs. ETFs and index funds are pretty much exactly the same thing. But with an ETF, you have the ability to be able to trade it on a consistent basis. There was a contribution earlier, which I've just missed. All right, listen, Kenny, thank you so much, mate, for the contribution. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, mate. Let's have a look at what we've got here. Where was I? Right, I just need to go back and just try and catch up to where I was. Sorry, 1 second. All right, Karen. I've been watching a lot of comp content, thank you. Listened in on the podcast, thank you. Can't seem to find anything that covers how to overcome the line you sometimes mention about your dad not having a pension. Yeah, okay. So I guess what you're trying to ask there, Karen... Okay, so, alright, okay. So you're talking about pensions there, okay. So my dad worked his entire life, and at 56 realised they didn't have a pension. And in my household, it's the only time that I really remember my dad ever talking about money in an open forum, and it was a conversation that really stemmed out of like panic. Like he was really panicked. He was stressed out, really stressed out, because for him it almost felt like he didn't have a legacy to leave. Because I could talk about this a bit later on. I don't want to talk about it now because I could go on about this forever. There was a lot that surrounded it, but for him, he was very stressed out because he felt that he didn't have a legacy to leave, and he simply left it way too late. So I'm very passionate about pensions. I'm really passionate about pensions. It's one of my big fears that I won't have enough in my retirement, purely because I saw how worried my dad was. My biggest advice to anybody who is watching this, who is able-bodied, working in business right now, and even if you are self-employed, running your own business, you're a director of your own company, or actually fully fledged self-employed, is you need to be thinking about the future. And if you're not paying into a pension, you are missing an absolute trick. There are so many misconceptions about pensions, and a lot of them are absolute BS, if I'm completely honest. You have people here on YouTube talking about pensions that have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. And if you're working in a business, they will have an auto-enrollment scheme or a workplace pension. You have to pay into that. Have to. No excuses not to. Because if you opt out, you are saying goodbye to free money. Free money. So if you're happy for your employer to be pocketing some money that they should be paying into a pension for you, but because you said no, they're not, and particularly if you hate going to this job anyway, then albeit. But there is no excuse not to be paid into your workplace pension scheme. It's your entitlement. It is now law that your employer has to pay in to a pension on your behalf, at least 3%. Some of them are really, really good. They will say, well, if you pay in 10%, we'll pay 10% in. You need to find out what your employee workplace scheme is, and you have to pay into it. If you don't do it, you are leaving yourself a hiding. You're going to end up reaching the age of 40, 45, and then start thinking about a pension and realizing that you don't really have enough time to get yourself a good amount of money to retire upon. And unfortunately, a lot of people think that state pension is going to be around. State pension is going to be around. I'll be fine. The state pension at the moment is £7,000 to £8,000. I don't know about you, but I couldn't live off £7,000 to £8,000 a year. I just couldn't. Certainly not. And if you do, well, good luck, because what are you going to be eating? Hopefully you paid off a mortgage at that point, but how are you going to live off £7,000 to £8,000? And there is a big consensus to say, and this has been rumbling in the industry for years, that the state pension might not even be around in 20 years' time. Certainly by the time I get around to retirement, state pension might not even be there. So if you're not paying into a workplace pension, you have to. If you are self-employed running your own business, so let's just say you're a director in your own business, try and make sure that you make a contribution. Nest is an easy way for you to begin. 8%, it's an allowable expense. It will save you money on corporation tax. If you're not a director in your own company, but you are working for yourself, then try and have a look at people like PensionBee, for example. With PensionBee, you have to consolidate past pensions, but they can allow you to pay into a pension and at least prepare for the future. But if you're not doing it, if you're not paying into a pension, it's one of the biggest mistakes you're ever going to make, and I cannot tell you that more forcefully. I really, really can't. It's really, really, really important. I watched my dad go through it. It's one of my big fears still, and it's one of the things that I'm really, really passionate about and I want people to be aware of. So please, 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 if you're not paying into your pension, you need to speak to your HR department tomorrow and ask about the workplace pension scheme and get yourself in there, because you're saying goodbye to free money. Francois, is it right to get started? Is it a right time to get started with a fund with a one-off lump sum investment, or would you suggest waiting a few weeks and months? My question to that be, why would you wait? Look, at the end of the day, it's time in the market, not time in the market. We don't know when the markets are going to go up or go down. If you wait another week, another month, because you're expecting the market to fall and it doesn't, and guess what? You've wasted a week or a month. The best thing for you to do is just get going right now. Just get in. Just get on the field of play and start to play. You never know what's going to happen. So just get in there. Follow-up question here from Karen. Do you plan on releasing content on this at some point in a similar position, and would like to hear what others have done? Actually, Karen, I'm actually in the process of actually designing a WebEx, a webinar, where I'm actually going to be teaching people, number one, fundamentals about pensions. Obviously, that's important. But I'm also going to be teaching people how to actually forecast. So one of the biggest issues that I find is this. People have no idea how much money they need to have an income of, say, £20,000 a year. People have no idea. So in order for you to have an income of £20,000 a year, you need a lump sum of money. Nobody understands what that lump sum of money is. So what I'm going to be doing in this webinar is I'm going to be teaching people how to actually forecast that, so they know, right, I need X amount in a pension pot to be able to get this amount of income in X amount of years' time, and then work back around, okay, so how much do you now need to pay into your pension every single month in order to get to that number. So that's something that I'm working on right now. I'm hopefully going to be delivering that sometime in November. But if you're interested in that, Karen, I don't know if you're on Instagram, message me on Instagram your email address, or if you go onto my Instagram, actually, I do have a link where I've asked people to register their email addresses for interest. So on my Instagram account, it's on my link tree. Let me just double check it, actually. Make sure I haven't changed it over the last couple of days, because I have changed a couple of things in there. I have changed it. So if you just email me your, DM me your email address on Instagram, I'll put you on the list, and when the webinar is ready, I'll invite you to it so you can take part. But it's really, really important, and yeah, these kind of things are crucial in order to help people plan. Rodin, hey there, I just wanted to thank you for all the good information on your channel. Using below 25% on credit card balance for building credit really helps me a lot. Thank you. Listen, Rodin, thank you so much, mate. That feedback is always nice, and I love reading those kind of comments when, you know, stuff that I post has actually been helpful to people. That really does make it all worthwhile. So thank you, mate. I really do appreciate it. Imran, thanks, Pete, for taking the time to answer our questions. I think finding a balance between growth and annual returns is important. I want my money to work harder, and a dividend gives me that. It does, yeah, it does give you that additional boost, because if you can get dividends and growth, absolutely perfect. But you're right, getting the balance between the two is really, really important. And again, if you're just pigeonholing yourself to say that you're looking for dividends only, you're potentially missing out on a ton of good companies that will give you really, really good returns. Some of them might even return even more than what the dividends rate is. So just try and make sure that within your plan, you're looking at that as an overall piece in your investment strategy. Petra, so the stuff I was looking at is you invested in property in units, £500, and you would get rent and property appreciation either monthly or at the end of the investment period, e.g. 12 months. Okay, there are plenty of those around. Let me ask you this, Petra. Do you own your own first property yet? Because those things are fine, right? And yeah, they can be a good source of returns. I would question them right now with COVID and what performance and returns they've had right now, because a lot of them will be dependent on, they might be service like buildings, right? Service accommodations. And like through COVID, they would have performed horribly. And these are some of the things that you need to bear in mind. People say that property is safe. Property is not always safe. You still have risk within properties. So, you know, you need to select these things carefully. You need to select them really, really carefully. And you also need to be abundantly aware of what the costs are associated with these. Because when they're sending in cleaners to go play things, and they might have ground rents or service charges, all those things are going to eat into your return. So you need to consider that entire thing. One thing I would say to people is this, you know, if you're going to be looking at investing this kind of stuff into those kind of propositions, and you've got money that you can throw at it on a monthly basis, why not just, you know, throw that money into a separate account and look at a buy-to-let property of your own? So you actually own the property that you're putting your money into. You don't actually own the property that you're putting money into. You own a share of it. You own a share of the profits. You don't actually own the deeds. So why not do that? That would be my question to you. And yeah, it might mean that you've got to take a little bit longer to actually get the deposit and go through the hoops, but the payoff is so much more, because your deeds are on the property, and if the property appreciates in value, you actually get that as well, because it is yours. So those are just my thoughts. There's nothing wrong with that approach, but I just think that sometimes there are better approaches, and you need to know all the variables involved with that as well. Imran, researching and finding companies that have potential to grow because they have a good idea or a good sound business management is also part of the comprehensive investment plan. Yeah, that's really, really good, mate. One thing that a lot of people actually miss is they don't look at the management team in a business. And I say this all the time, right? Tesla is a prime example. If Elon left Tesla, would Tesla still be Tesla? It would be from a name point of view, but not from a company point of view. You saw the same thing when Steve Jobs died. There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions being asked about Tim Cook and whether he would be good or not. Luckily he is, but he's still not Steve Jobs. So management is really, really, really important, and the business, very, very important, because the management essentially drive the vision of the business going forward. So yeah, really, really good. Imran, look, it sounds like you're on the right track there. So well done. T, what's going on? Leo, what's going on? Leo, you messaged me on IG. How you doing, mate? Could you make any platform spreadsheets for tracking investment savings, retirement funds? I have my own spreadsheets that I use personally. I don't know of any that are available online in just like the ether online, because I've never looked at any. I might, as a consideration, might make my one available after this. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. Yeah, so Mike, sorry, not on IVA, just an agreement with Amex. I was guaranteed that once the debt is paid off, there would be no mark on my credit history. Perfect. One thing I'll say though, Mike, being in the industry for as long as I have, knowing that companies often, well, someone in the business will say something, but that person doesn't have it signed off by, or it isn't policy, make sure you've got that on an email somewhere, mate, please. All right? But if you haven't, contact them and say, listen, just want to go over the terms of my agreement. Can you confirm that this is still the case? And see if they will get it to you on email. You need some kind of record of that just to make sure, because I definitely have seen circumstances where company has said they're going to do X, they don't do X, then Y happens, and then it's like, well, tough luck. So see if you can get it in on record in some way, shape or form. Luke, perfect. I was hoping 1 to 2 years for the flat. So this is massive help. Been toying with investing, but haven't been 100% sure if it's worth. Yeah, mate. So Luke, because you're 1 to 2 years, don't invest it in the market. Literally put it into something that is going to be, and it's a shame really, because interest rates are so low. You're not going to get anything that's going to be massive, but you can put it into a cash lifetime ISA. And look at it this way: the 25% you're going to get from the government is a pretty decent return anyway. So if you look at it that way, it's not too bad. But yeah, put it into something that is going to be safe, easy for you to get into, easy for you to get out without any risk. Yeah, and just go for it then, and just try and develop a side hustle of some kind, and develop that, and use that to generate some additional income for yourself as well. Alright, okay, videos. Thanks for the reply, Pete. I was just checking out one of the ESG funds on Vanguard, and they had companies like Nestle that have a history of not being ethical. Just wondered how companies get approved. Okay, mate, really, really, really good question. Okay, so it depends on how you do it. So there are different approaches to ESG. You've got positive screening, you've got negative screening. So positive screening will say, for example, we will apply preference to companies that do X, Y, Z. Negative screening will be, we will not deal with companies who either deal in, say, for example, tobacco, armaments, or I don't know, pornography, for example, right? That's negative. So they'll have like a batch of things that they'll say, absolutely not. If a company dabbles in those things, then absolutely not. They won't consider them. There is a middle ground called impact, right? So impact is basically where they don't have positive, they don't have negative. It's kind of a combination of the two, right? So what they might say is, so with Nestle, they might have a really bad history of, I don't know, environmental pollution, right? But what they'll say is, okay, we want to invest in you. However, we know that you've got a history of this. This doesn't really align with our core beliefs. Therefore, we want you to do something about it. And what they will then basically do is they'll say, right, we expect to see that you have introduced policy X, Y, Z within the next 12 months. And we're happy to give you, say, 50 million right now. And as long as you introduce those 3 policies, we'll give you an additional 20 million once those are on there. Now, typically what happens is when these companies are investing that level of money into a business, they are taking a seat on the board of the company. And that allows them to get full view of whether they introduce policy X, Y, Z within the time period agreed. Now, let's just say they did that with Nestle, and Nestle, after 12 months, doesn't do anything about it, right? They then say, you know what, you've not done X, Y, Z, therefore we're going to take our money away. So they will have criteria but they'll be pushing for Nestle to do a lot better if they invest in them. They also use a load of other things as well, but that goes into the weeds of stuff. But that's generally high level how it works. But they will have criteria, and they'll be saying to the guys, look, we really need you to do this, because if you don't do it, we're not going to give you our money. And because there are large sums of money on the table a lot of the time, especially when you're looking at people like Vanguard, who have been around for years and years and years, they'll force change, and they'll force change very, very rapidly within companies like that as well. So that's just a brief explanation for you there, Ovidius. Hope that's helpful. Hannah Forex, investing on Trading 212 versus investing via your local bank. Oh my God, are banks still investing? Really, really good. Good question, Hannah. This is a tough one, because I wouldn't actually ask people to go to their bank to invest. The days when banks helped people invest money into the markets, I know some of them still do it, but it's like going into like the Skittles factory, right? And then saying, I only want the yellow ones. Basically, that's what it's like if you go into like a bank for investing. Now, I don't know about you, but my favorite Skittle is the red one. I don't want the yellow ones. That's what it's like going into a bank. You are limiting yourself massively. Trading 212 gives you variety, and Trading 212 is a completely different kind of like kettle of fish to investing with your local bank, because banks will only have a very limited range of things that they can offer you. It's just the yellow Skittles, that's it. Whereas with Trading 212, you've got the red ones, the orange ones, the green ones, the purple ones, whatever tickles your fancy. But you still have to know what you're doing with Trading 212, because with a bank, even though they've only got the yellow ones, they've had a criteria of why they've chose those yellow ones. So there's been some due diligence and research around, well, we're only offering the yellow ones because the red ones we don't like because of X. With Trading 212, you're having access to all of the skills, but you have to do your research on, are the red ones good for you, even though you like them, or are the purple ones better for you, even though you don't quite like those as much. So really, really good question. I would always say, do your research. The detail is in the devil. The devil's in the detail, as they say. So just do your research and make sure that you're comfortable with what you're doing. But investing via your bank, banks are just banks, so they've got a long way to go. They leave a lot to be desired. So yeah, Luke, I'm 21, just started paying to my pension. Well done. Works for Costa, and they match my 8% contribution. Wow. Okay, no, mate, that's really, really good. That's really, really good. So you've got 16% going into your pension, mate. That's awesome, and you're 21. Wow. Mate, I tell you what, you should do a compound interest calculator on your monthly contributions. So do me a favor, right? Let me just see if I can post a link in here very quickly. Let me just find you a link. And what I want you to do... Actually, I can't find a link. Right, so there's a couple of things I want you to do, Luke. Right, get your payslip. Download it, or whether it's in your physical ones, you probably download them now. Find out how much is going into your pension. That will be a number. So let's just say it's, I don't know, £162 a month, right? Type into Google compound interest calculator. Then use the compound interest calculator to basically estimate how much you're going to have in a pension. So how it simply works is, compound interest rate will come up. You put in your monthly contributions. It will ask you to select an interest rate return. So what I want you to do is choose a 5% return annually, and also do a 10% return annually as well, right? Put that in. If they have an option to increase alongside inflation, click that as well, and then just do calculate. And sit back and be fucking amazed at the number that it kicks out, because, mate, you're 21. If you retire at, say, I know this is going to be depressing, at, say, 60, mate, you are going to be in the cash, swimming in the cash when you get round to retirement. Believe me, and I'd encourage anybody watching this, either live or afterwards, go and complete that exercise with your pension fund. You will be amazed. It is absolutely amazing, and that's the power of paying into a pension pot. So, mate, love it. Thank you very much, Luke. DJ, hey Pete, I just got about I'm just about to get under £1,000 in trading 212 ISA, just sitting there, not invested in anything. I do nothing. I'm not sure what to do with it. Any suggestions? Right. Okay. So you're in trading 212. What have you looked? What stocks are you looking at? What stocks are you looking at is the first thing. I wouldn't just say just go buy stocks or just put money in, because you're responsible for your selection. So you have to make sure, apologies guys, you have to make sure that your selection is right. So what stocks are you looking at? Why are you looking at them? Will be my first question for you. I don't want to suggest stocks to you because that will be construed as advice. But yeah, what stocks are you looking at, mate? You need to do your research. You need to understand really what you want to achieve and what kind of companies you like to start off with, to be honest, mate. It's all going to be in the research that you do. If you're on IG, message me on IG. Crimson. I know. You are a little bit late, but you're here anyway. I appreciate you. Have you talked about what you think will happen with Trump and the markets tomorrow? Actually, no, we've not spoken about that just yet. So Crimson, welcome. What do I think is going to happen with Trump? It's a tough one. Look, whenever you get round to US election year, there is always volatility. Now, Trump has been rumoured to be good for the stock markets. So if he loses, I would imagine that the market will react. But again, we have to bear in mind that whatever movements the markets make in the short term is only for the short term. It's the long-term outlook to the market that we need to be concerned with. Because there is so much unrest around the states, period, at the moment, certainly with what's going on with Corona. I mean, the numbers are still pretty shocking, to be fair. I know we're not too bad at the moment with obviously localized lockdowns. We're certainly nowhere near the level that they are. There will be a lot of uncertainty. But I think, again, I've already mentioned this at the top. If the market is volatile because of all of this uncertainty, and it will be volatile because of it, we know that, it's the perfect opportunity to be investing in index funds to get exposure into those markets whilst the markets are volatile. The idea is always to buy low and sell high. So it makes sense in that way. But what is actually going to happen, I don't know. It's going to be dependent on, number one, who wins. Is Trump going to win? Quite possibly. Like, stranger things have happened. Could Biden win? If the polls are to believe, yes, he should win. But nobody knows. If Biden did win, is Trump going to leave office amicably? Is he going to have a peaceful transference of power? Nobody really knows. One thing we do know is the market does not like uncertainty. It will be volatile as a result of that. But within that volatility lies opportunity. So, we can speculate all we want, but at the end of the day, it is one of those things that, it is what it is, and we can't do anything about it. But the key question is, do we see an opportunity in it? And I think if you follow me or you think about investments on a long-term basis, you should definitely see it as an opportunity regardless. Thank you, Mike. Right, so where were we? I was looking at a question from Ken. So do you think people would get more excited about their pension if it was easier to see, track, and how much is in there? Dude, Kenny, come on, mate. Seriously, I love this question. It doesn't seem as tangible as an investment as a savings account. You know what? Forever. So I spent 5 years in Canary Wharf working for an investment house on the pension side of their business, right? When I was working there, the conversation that my dad had, that flooded back to me because I didn't really know what he was talking about. I think I was 17 at the time, right? I didn't really understand. I was pension. It was a constant thing in the house. It was panicking. I didn't know what one was. But when I started working for the business, I was like, that's what my dad was stressed out about. Now, traditionally, pensions have always been this thing that you get this little piece of paper on a yearly basis, and then it just goes in a drawer somewhere, and then you forget about it, right? Now, honestly, mate, things have changed massively. So I'm a big advocate of Pension Bee. They manage your pensions, and it's available on your phone. So you get to see what's in it, how it's doing, everything. It's on your phone. You can actually include it in your net worth if you're using apps like Emma as well, that aggregates all of your assets into a net worth. It's beautiful. People would certainly feel more excited if it was more accessible, if they could see it, if it was more in their face. And that's what people like Pension Bee are doing, because it really, really does make a difference. It puts it right in your face. It puts it, outside our mind, right? It puts it in your mind, in your face, and you can't ever forget it. But mate, I love that question. Really, really good question. Phileas, yes, this was a great explanation. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, mate. Thank you. Gina, currently practicing fractional shares demo on Trading 212. Okay, cool. That's fine. Perfect. Mike, thanks again for the contribution, mate. I really, really do appreciate it. For a 5-year plan, should I choose an ETF versus ETF funds? Currently invested 50% of my savings on Legal & General Technology Index Trust, 50% in Vanguard US Equity Index Fund. There's no reason. Again, I need to be a little bit careful, so I'm not giving you advice here. So I'm just going to give you my general thoughts, right? So an ETF and an index fund are very, very similar, right? They buy a basket of funds. Only with an ETF you can trade it. So with an index fund, essentially what happens is the markets will open on Monday, say at 8 o'clock in the morning. They will close at 5 o'clock in the evening. With an index fund, you cannot trade during the work hours, right? So if you bought the fund and for some reason you needed to get out, you couldn't sell or trade out of an index fund until after the close of day, so 5 o'clock. With an ETF, you can trade during the day, which gives you a bit more flexibility. It gives you a bit more liquidity, right? So you have a bit more flexibility with an ETF. That's the main difference between the two. Now, they're both very, very good options. They're both very, very low cost. There's no reason why you can't have both. There's no reason why you can't do one or. So it really depends on what your preference is. And it depends on whether you want to be in a position where you want to be able to have the ability to trade out of a fund on a regular basis or at any given time. If you're investing long term, you may think it's something that you want. You may think it's something that you don't want. So it's really down to what your preference is. But those are the main two differences between an ETF and index fund. If you're going to be doing a comparison, just make sure you just compare how much they cost. If there's a big difference in cost, then you may decide to go one over the other. But those are just my thoughts for you. Okay, cool. Crimson, thank you. I was just scared because he was ill with COVID. Yeah, I mean the markets did react a little bit. When did he contract? Was it Wednesday or Thursday? I think it might have been. I can't remember. I think it might have been Thursday. The markets did tail off a little bit. I mean, I think the FTSE was like 1% down that morning, or something like that. I think it's recovered a little bit now. I haven't actually checked the FTSE, over the last couple of days. Where's the FTSE right now? Let's see what the performance is over the last week. Where are my charts? I look at all of this stuff on my phone, guys. So just bear me 1 second while I try and find this. Yeah, so the FTSE is at 5.9 at the moment. It's currently up. If I look up over the last week, yeah, I mean, so the FTSE reacted a little bit. I mean, it saw a bit of a drop on the first, but actually it's recovered a little bit. And this is going to be the same for most of the global markets. I think volatility is going to react. It's Donald Trump. It's America. It's the biggest market on the world. I remember looking at my Trading 212 account and seeing all of the stocks down, like all of them. Tesla were down, Apple were down, Facebook were down. All of it was down. But if you're investing for the long term, this comes with the territory. It's no cause for panic. So just bear that in mind and just always know in the back of your mind that unless you need the money out or need income from the money immediately, try not to fret. Alrighty, can you type those pension companies that you use? Yes, so, right, so what I'm going to do, guys, is let me just get this very quickly because there are a couple. So Moneybox do a really good pension. The issue with Moneybox is they only have 3 funds available for you to invest in. PensionBee, however, they have I think 7 funds, so you have a lot more variety. They are really, really, really good on that front in terms of giving you a number of things that you can invest in over a period of time. And they actually have an ethical ESG fund as well. I actually have one of my very small pension pots in with their ESG fund, and it's done very, very well performance-wise. Now, past performance is no indication to future performance, but it is a good option. So what I'll do is I'll post in here a link to them so you can get straight to them as well. I just need to find it. 1 second, guys. And by the way, do feel free to do a comparison and stuff like that as well between Moneybox and PensionBee. Those are the 2 that I know that are most popular, that give the most flexibility in terms of having it on your phone and so on and so forth. But feel free to do a comparison between the 2. With PensionBee, it's very, very good if you're looking to perhaps consolidate your past pension. So most people have worked for a business in previous workplaces, right? And what tends to happen is when you leave one company, then go on to another, you forget that you've paid into a pension in one location, right? In that one place. Now, if you've been the kind of person that has worked at maybe 3 or 4 businesses in the past, then sometimes what happens is you might have 3, 4, 5, 6 pensions all together that over the course of your career that you've just left and you just don't know where they are. Now, typically what happens is most people will not only just change jobs, but they'll also move addresses. So the companies that were managing the pensions for the employees that you used to work for will have your address when you were working for that company. If you've moved, they lose track of you, you lose track of them. So what PensionBee and Moneybox also do is now they have this consolidation purpose, and all their basic service, and all they need is your name, your national insurance number, I believe, the name of your employer, and what they basically do is they then go and search for all of those pension plans, and they pull them all into one plan, and it's there on your phone for you to look at. So I'll post the PensionBee link here. Feel free to use it to get through to them. It's really, really simple. You can complete it in like 5 minutes or so. But yeah, you can use those and just have a little look around. But do a comparison just to make sure they actually fit from a service point of view for you guys. But I've got one of my small pensions with PensionBee. They're very, very good, and I can see it on my phone. Let's see what else we've got here. What else have we got here? Crimson, Pete, you did an amazing video recently explaining how ETFs work. Totally recommend you go watch that. Yeah, cheers for that. Thank you very, very much. James, CashFX is a scam. Right, so I did a couple of videos on CashFX this week. And look, I try to be as honest as I possibly can in terms of like I give my views on this on things like this, right? And I don't have any dog in any fight when it comes to like reviewing companies. None whatsoever. My biggest priority is I want to keep people safe and use my knowledge so that when I explain things, you guys can take it into consideration for your own decisions. I'm nobody's mom, dad. I don't control anybody's mind or cash. So when I do reviews like this, people are entitled to, either say I'm talking shit, or you'd be like, okay, thanks, Pete, I'll take this into consideration. But CashFX is one that I must have had 30 or so messages on IG, and then on Monday I woke up to a comment on one of my Trading 212 videos about CashFX, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to do a video on them. And we just need to be careful, and I think it's really important. I made it a focus this week because we are in a situation where, oh, did you say isn't a scam? Okay, so there's a potential debate here, guys. So these are my views on CashFX. So CashFX, the business, is not registered here in the UK. So they're not registered by the FCA. And if you watch any of my review videos, then you know that the two things that you need to be bearing in mind when you're using any provider is, number one, they have to be registered by the FCA, authorized by the FCA for what they basically do. CashFX is not, which means that when they're offering services in here, they're not working within the purview of any regulator. And the regulator is important because the regulator holds companies like this to high standards. It means that they can and cannot do certain things in the protection of a consumer. So you, as a retail consumer, it means that there are certain practices they can't do, how they handle their money, how they handle your money, services they provide, things that they have to explain. It gives them a code of conduct. If they're operating with outside of those regulations, then it means that you as a consumer have no protection whatsoever. Now, the big issue that I have with CashFX is not the fact that they have a service that isn't regulated here, but the company in itself isn't actually a UK company. They're registered in Panama. There's no record of who actually owns that business. So any company registered here in the UK, you can at least find who the managing director is or who actually owns the business. You have a name, you can find an address. You can't find anything of the kind with CashFX. And it essentially means that because they're based in Panama, they're outside of UK jurisdiction. So if you're sending money to them and they decide, boys, let's shut up shop, or they go bankrupt and they close up with 20 grand, 5 grand, 3 grand of your money, that's it. You have nothing that you can do. You can't go to the FCA. You can't rely on any financial services compensation scheme. You have no means for recourse whatsoever. Now, for some people, that might not be a big issue. But for me, that is a massive, massive red flag. Because at the end of the day, if every single company that provides a financial service here in the UK has to be registered, why should they be any different? Companies here in the UK have to be registered because the regulator's job is to protect consumers, everyday people. And if a company isn't regulated, isn't authorized, not only are they operating from an illegal basis, they also have no way of providing you any consumer protections whatsoever. So you take a risk. But again, I have no dog in this fight, and people at the end of the day will make their own decisions. But I think those things are key things for people to remember. Too many of them talk about making you wealthy. I've had messages on IG this week talking about, we can set you up with an account, we'll make you wealthy very, very quickly. They use these buzzwords all the time to tie people in. It is about appealing to people's immediate need for gratification. Again, when you're investing or spending money, using money, you have to think long term. There is a ton of other stuff that I could go into around business model, sustainability of business model. We don't have time for that today. I would just say if you're using them, make sure you're doing research. If they're a Forex company that says that they're trading Forex, and this is a contention as well, in the US, they're also not regulated in the US. They had a cease and desist order last year in the States because the American version of the FCA don't like what they're doing, right? So, look, it's dicey stuff. People are saying, we got really good returns. Okay, I would just ask people to go and search Bernie Madoff on YouTube. You're on YouTube right now. After this video, go type in Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff will give you an idea of how Ponzi schemes operate. And when you have a company like CashFX, which is paying you for memberships, or you have a matrix of people who join and then you earn off these people, you have to seriously ask how that is sustainable. Particularly if, according to a comment that I received a couple of days ago, says they don't make any money off trading. Then how is it sustainable? It's really, 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 really important that you go and get answers to those questions, because the money has to come from somewhere. So where does it come from? So please go check out Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff, his story is incredible. You would think that this kind of stuff would never happen, but it does. So please be careful. Make sure you do your research. I'm not saying that they are a scam or don't use them, but I'll tell you this right now: they do have an FCA warning. The FCA are warning against people using them. So if the FCA is telling you that, it's worth considering. But anyway, Kenny, do you have any money in peer-to-peer lending? I have a innovative finance ISA with crowd property, 8% return on the 12-month investment. I don't do any peer-to-peer lending, mate. Don't do any of that. Again, very, very high risk. For me, I'd rather invest it in the stock market. and take my risks that way. Again, with peer-to-peer lending, typically what you're doing is you're lending to new businesses, so you are going to you're going to be offered a higher rate of return because of the risk that you're essentially taking. But a lot of the time with the companies, you don't really have it's hard to get information on the companies themselves. You don't have any say on how the companies actually run. That's true with the stock market as well, but I just invest in the stock market because I think it's just a better place. At least I can take a more calculated risk on that side. Personal opinion. But with an innovative finance ISA, you get a good 8% return. That's still tax free, so pretty decent. Suwan, I've used your advice for the cash effects video and did some research on iMarket slides on FCA and saw a warning issued for them. Yes, they do have a warning on the FCA, so you really do have to be careful on that, guy. It's like, someone said to me, they have leaders here in the UK. It means jack. You're not going to go find those leaders. Those leaders, I guarantee you're all self-employed. All of them. They won't be on the books as an employee. There won't be any pension contributions being made for them. They're not going to be, a business cost. They're all going to be self-employed. And the biggest thing that pisses me off with a lot of this stuff, and I will get on a soapbox on this, is a lot of these dicks who always sell these forex things, right? They don't actually make any money off trading. They make more money off selling people into the program at the promise of we're going to make you wealthy, that they don't actually trade themselves. So what kind of education or trading platform is it if you're making more money of bringing members in than you are trading? I don't get it. And guys, we have to be really fucking careful. We are literally going to come to the point at the end of this month where people are going to be losing jobs, and opportunities like this are going to be raking in loads of money. And God forbid, someone in Panama goes, that's enough, boys, let's pack up shop today and take the money. God forbid that happens. We really have to be careful. And again, it's not me saying don't use them, completely down to you, but you definitely need to do your research. If the FCA, which is the regulator in the UK, who is responsible for protecting consumers, has a warning about a company, the warning isn't there for child's play. And just so you know, in order for a company like that to be put on the FCA register, that means that they've had some serious bad feedback, and they've actually investigated it themselves. They just don't go and put a company on the register just like that. It goes through a very, very lengthy process. So guys, be very, very, very careful. Right, DJ. Always fun. It's funny when I see Towie or Love. Oh mate, listen. Again, listen to the podcast tomorrow morning. The Towie lot and the Love Island lot who are promoting Forex never traded a day in their lives. They are being paid cash. It's a transaction. We're going to give you cash. You've got 1 million followers. We'll give you this much. You need to say this. They don't vet it. They don't do any research. They don't do anything at all. It's a transaction. And unfortunately, people do get ripped off. People do lose money in these schemes. And this is not child's play. And one thing that really annoys me is the fact that oftentimes investing is complicated enough as it is, right? We don't need companies popping up taking people's money because they make it seem as though it's easy for you to do. Listen to the podcast tomorrow morning. That's all I'm going to say. The podcast tomorrow morning is going to be very, very enlightening. Forsage Ethereum. You're talking crypto there, I would imagine. I've got a little bit of Ethereum. I've not heard of Forsage though. So let me know. Anyway, guys, let's have a look and see if there are any more questions on here. I know that we've been on here now for about an hour and a half or so. So if you do have any of the questions, please pop them in here. Let me just go back on this to ensure I've not missed any. Let's have a look. Have I missed any? I don't think I have. No, I haven't. Okay, cool. T, what do you think about random day trading while investing properly alongside? You can do day trading. Again, just make sure you've got the education so you know exactly what you're doing. and try and make sure that you have a strategy, a clear strategy for both. Again, T, listen to the podcast tomorrow, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the Forex trading side of things, that is also applicable to if you're trading commodities. The philosophies, the underlying philosophies and the strategies are applicable across both of those things. Trading, period. You need to think about, do you understand how to build an actual proper trading plan, strategy? You're talking about back testing, being disciplined and journaling and doing all this stuff that is essential for success. Listen to the podcast tomorrow morning. It'll be very, very enlightening. But there's nothing wrong with you doing a little bit of day trading alongside investing as part of what you normally have going on. And actually, in some cases, that could be very, very beneficial to people, because essentially what it means is that you've got some money that's doing that long-term work for you. If you become very, very good at day trading, you become profitable, then that can give you the extra boost that you need as well. So there is room for both, but you just really need to understand how things are in terms of how they operate, so that you can actually, make sure that you can operate and trade and form those habits in order to be successful in that field. Anyway, I don't think there are any more questions on here. I appreciate you guys spending the time with me. Thank you so much. The next live is going to be in a couple of weeks' time, so it is going to be on the 28th of October. There'll be some, by then, I hope to announce a membership thing here on YouTube. So within the membership thing, what I'm hoping to do is basically have a little bit of a program. So I get tons and tons and tons of messages on IG, and I get a lot. And alongside all of the coaching, the consultations that I do, the podcast recording, the video recording, it becomes really, 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 really cumbersome. So what I want to do is, hopefully by the 28th, I'll be launching a membership thing here on YouTube. It will be 2-tiered. But on the higher tier, as you guys know, I do have an investment course. So on the higher tier, what I'm planning to actually do is include the investment course as part of the package. And what that basically means is that we will have member lives just like this one, where I take you through a portion of the investment course. I'll take questions, go through scenarios, all those kind of good stuff with you as well. So hopefully by the 28th, I aim to have it ready by then, but you may see some changes on the channel in the run up to that. But I appreciate you guys spending, an hour and 43 minutes with me on a Sunday evening. I do appreciate it, and thank you so much for everyone who's contributed to the channel as well. Every little bit really does help, because it can be quite an undertaking preparing these things as well. So I do appreciate it, guys. Until next time, we'll catch you later on.